Welcome to Showdown. I'm Mark Kaysen. It is Thursday, and that's August 29th. Tomorrow is the last Friday in August. So September is right around the corner, and you know that means all kinds of things are happening, and poor Donald is going berserk. Gee, what a surprise. He's always going berserk. But it's worse. It's worse. So let's start with the craziest thing that he could possibly do. And I would have thought that the craziest thing would have been what I was going to start off with related to J.D. Vance. But no, Donald probably figured it out that people around the country would be pointing to Vance, and he didn't want J.D. Vance to get all the attention in the United States. So he decided that he would get it. And here's how he's doing it. He's got a joke that he has posted on whatever he posts on. I don't even know what, I know what you call it, but I don't want to say it. Just like he doesn't want to say Kamala's name. Well, I don't want to say the name of his idiotic posting system, because it really, for the most part, doesn't exist. We all know DJT is under 20. And as far as I'm concerned, I do believe on its way to 1 or lower. But anyway, here's what he's talking about. He told a joke about Kamala Harris performing a sex act. Now, to tell you the truth, I don't know the details. In other words, I don't know the sex act. And honestly, I don't want to know. And the people who told about it on MSNBC certainly weren't going to tell the joke on the air. But apparently you can get your hands on it if you just go to Google. It's all over the place. He's out here acting crazy. He's melting down. Now, of course, how far can you melt down when you've already melted down? I don't know. Who knows? Just ridiculous. So he's got other things he's doing. He's not through. So first of all, he's reaching out to every fringe voter that he can possibly get his hands on, because he knows he can't get real people, only the nuts. So for example, he's posting all kinds of things for QAnon. Such a fine group of people, you know, great people on both sides. Yeah, exactly. Nazis, neo-Nazis, QAnon, anything out there you can find, any fascist group you can find, whatever he can get his hands on. He wants votes. He's not kidding. So that's one thing. We know he's got RFK Jr. in the fold, and that's so sad. I've read more things from the family today because, again, he's just reaching out for fringe nuts, weirdos, freaks, whatever he can get his hands on. Hey, he'll take them if they've got a vote. Probably take them if they don't have a vote, because he could make it up. He's become an expert on how to cheat, he says. Well, I'm not even worried about it. You know, let me not leave out, one of the good groups. I mean, this one at least, they're freaks, they're weirdos, but they're not fascists. And that's the Bitcoin people. He has promised all the crypto people that the United States will be the greatest crypto country in the world. He's pretty desperate, isn't he? Pretty desperate. Of course, J.D. Vance was speaking to the firefighters union people today, and not surprisingly, they were booing him. That's good. What do these guys expect? They act crazy. They say the weirdest things that anybody can think of, and then they get booed. And then they're shocked that they've been booed. Yeah, here's one of their claims today that Kamala, who is doing the interview tonight, you'll watch the interview tonight on CNN with Dana Bash, and that'll be at 8:00 our time here in St. Louis. And they say the interview's fake. They'll say anything. The interview's fake because they claim that CNN is or has done the interview on tape and that they are redoing all the parts that are bad because Kamala can't think straight. She doesn't know anything. She's crazy. She's stupid, all that. So that's okay because they say they're going to let her redo all the parts so that it looks good. I'm sure that everybody on Earth 1 believes that one. On Earth 2, listen, I guarantee you they believe it on Earth 2. Guaranteed. Earth 1, no. Not going to happen. But Earth 1 knows about the fringe voter thing because Earth 1 knows that they're not going to vote for Donald Trump. What do you think? This has just gotten insane, beyond insane. It was already insane. Now it's beyond insane. This guy's got a problem. Pretty bad one. Fake CNN interviews. He'll say anything. Why not? If you're losing, you're losing. You know, there's a poll out today, actually 2 polls out today. First, a national poll. And this is the USA Today Suffolk poll. Very respected. And they say that Kamala is now up by 5 points. Now, you know, there's another one that says 8 points, but let's say it's 5. You know that James Carville says if it's 3 or better, that will overcome anything in the Electoral College. And you got to realize, I mean, it's not just the number, it's the direction. Every poll is in this direction, and Donald knows it. That's why he's going after Bitcoin voters, neo-Nazis. Well, no, he loved the neo-Nazis before. Let's not make a mistake. He was going for the neo-Nazis anyway. Remember, his administration will be called the Unified Reich. That's good. Something wrong with this guy. So one of the things that people are talking about, oh, I'm sorry. You know, excuse me. I mean, there's just so many things. How can you remember them all? Here's a good one. Now, this one's from J.D. Vance. He did it twice. He told Kamala to go to hell. Now, honestly, do we know of anybody in history that has ever told their opponent to go to hell? The closest that I can get to this is when Adlai Stevenson was in the United Nations back during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And he was telling the Russians to own up to what they had done with the missiles in Cuba. And the Russians wouldn't talk. And Stevenson said, look, you're going to talk. He says, because I'm going to stay here and wait for your answer until hell freezes over. Now, that's about it. Compare that to J.D. Vance telling Kamala Harris to go to hell. And by the way, he had a few choice words. I mentioned this yesterday for Randy Weingarten over at the American Federation of Teachers, because he says they're brainwashing kids. And, you know, I always kid, I joke when I talk to my friends on the right, and I say that there's no question that in my classroom that I am brainwashing these kids. I'm giving them all that they need to know to become left-wing, crazed fanatics. Now, of course, the reality is that what I do is first I tell them what I think. And I know a lot of teachers don't. They don't believe in it. But I believe in it. I tell everybody what I think. But in the classrooms, college classrooms, high school classrooms, I tell the kids what I think. Now, then I tell them not to repeat what they hear from me. That's not acceptable. What I want from students is I want a point of view and I want evidence. And I want good evidence, and it better be good, because it's not good enough to just parrot my words. I wouldn't accept it in a minute. And you know something? There aren't any teachers out there that would. It's just not happening. It really isn't. I mean, if you can find one person, you know, it's just like we talk about the murderers. If you can find one person acting crazy, telling their kids things that they shouldn't, okay, you could find one. And they shouldn't do it, shouldn't allow it. But I can tell you this, there's no one more radical left than I am. Okay. There might be somebody, but I don't know where it would be, because I don't know how you'd get to my left. And I'm not talking about violent people or anything like those. People are different. That's nuts. That's not politics. I'm talking about political ideology. I love government. I trust government. I believe that government can help us all to solve unbelievably important problems if everybody works together. That is, in America today, a far left-wing position. I trust the tens of thousands of workers who go to work every day at the IRS, the FBI, the CIA, I mean, everywhere. These are people in our system of meritocracy. That is, they pass an exam and they qualify to do a job. And if they work for the FCC, they're experts in communication. If they work for the EPA, they're experts in pollution. You know, we don't pick people because they like the president. We don't pick people because they believe in QAnon or they think that Hillary is eating children in the basement of a pizzeria. We don't hire people for those reasons. Now, Donald would like to, and you think I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. Read Project 2025, his program. He's talked about all this. He wants to get rid of everybody in the civil service system. He wants to fire tens of thousands of people and hire people who agree with him. Just not how we do it. I mean, I understand back in Andrew Jackson's time, yeah. I understand he loves Andrew Jackson. You know, another genius when it comes to, for example, medical health. You realize that, Donald, who talked about injecting bleach to kill COVID, well, his hero, Andrew Jackson, used to have his doctor bleed him every week. You don't believe this? Go look it up. They bled Andrew Jackson. They almost killed him. He was so weak from the blood that he lost because they, at that time, believed that you could get rid of all the disease, all the bad things in your body by bleeding yourself. This is probably where Donald gets all his theories. I mean, obviously, this was before antibiotics and so forth, and they just believed this. This was a common therapy. You're sick? Bleed him. Now, in the case of Andrew Jackson, he wasn't even sick. He was just trying to prevent future sickness. He was killing himself. Well, Donald could do the same. Really. What's that? Ivor something or other? The horse stuff. I mean, the man's crazy. I know there are people walking around right now. I guess it's ivermectin or something like that. People walking around right now saying that it's a cure for everything. It'll cure cancer. It'll cure COVID. Everything. Hey, Donald went for it. Well, and then there's RFK Jr. Oh, he's a star today in Donald's part of Earth 2. I mean, yesterday he was just being denounced by everybody in his family. But today it's all out there for us to see, everything he wants to do. And Donald thinks that by putting him on the not putting him on the transition team, putting him in charge of the transition team. Well, I think that's pretty safe because there ain't going to be any transition. No, nothing. He's not going to be a president of the United States. What are you kidding? This guy's nuts. Now, on the other side, there's Kamala. And she's out here doing something that I'm not really all that unhappy about, but a little bit. I'll tell you. She believes in American exceptionalism, which used to be what the Republicans believed until Donald came along and explained that this country is going down fast, that we are a banana republic, that we're in the middle of a recession or worse, and that Joe Biden will put us into World War III, and presumably Kamala will do the same, World War III. And of course, Vladimir Putin gives them a little help by saying that the United States is headed for World War III. And he does say that. And he's been threatening strategic nuclear weapons against Europe and even against us for over a year, well over a year. It's the threat that's supposed to get us to stop what we're doing in Ukraine. Now, of course, while he threatens, Ukraine is taking over Russia. Don't get me wrong. Ukraine can't take over Russia, but it does have part of Russian territory, and the military people today are explaining that Russia can't get it back. Not yet. Not now. Yeah, if we would stop giving them weapons, maybe they could, but we're not going to stop giving them weapons. So, in fact, Vladimir Putin's got a problem, and he's threatening us. And Donald, with his friend Vladimir Putin, is explaining how World War III is on its way. It's coming. It'll be here shortly because Vladimir Putin is going to attack us with nuclear weapons. And remember, strategic nuclear weapons, that's nothing. I mean, it'll kill you, yeah. But it's not like it's some lesser nuclear weapon. I mean, it's less than a 50 megaton hydrogen bomb. Yeah, it's less than that, but it's more than what we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So it's not minor. It's significant. And it's also never going to be used. Never. Just not going to happen. It's all talk. It's all threat. It's all because all of them, I say all of them, all of the people on Putin's side, Trump's side, Viktor Orban's side, Maduro in Venezuela's side, everybody, all those nuts, they are the ones who believe that they can threaten all of us with nuclear war. I mean, all they can do is commit suicide. They won't. Really, they won't. But, you know, it's never ending. Day by day, it gets worse. Talking about Donald, because he's so desperate that he just doesn't know where else to go. He says he had a policy speech today. Policy? He's talking about Kamala being stupid and all that kind of business. That's policy? No, he doesn't have a policy at all. I talked yesterday about what he's saying on Social Security. That's policy. That's his policy speech. That Kamala Harris and the Democrats are taking all of your Social Security money and turning it over to immigrants. I mean, you must be laughing about all of this, even if you support this guy. I know on Earth 2, it's possible to believe anything, but you can't believe all of this. Really, you can't. You know, there's a great book out. I forget the name of it, but it's about the John Birch Society and how ever since the John Birch Society, there have been these crazy people. And initially, they all sunk back into the woodwork. You know how when we talk about people came out of the woodwork? So they did. They hid from about 1954 until basically Donald. And now they are right out here like they were with Joe McCarthy. I mean, you know that Joe McCarthy got up in front of cameras, pulled out a piece of paper, and he said, I have in front of me a list of 250 members of the State Department who are members of the Communist Party. Now, in 2024, we happen to know that that piece of paper was blank, nothing on it. But there were people all over the United States that believed that he had a list of all the people in the State Department who worked for the Communist Party. And then there were all the people in show business that were blacklisted. You know the story. The House on Un-American Activities Committee, Richard Nixon, Helen Gahagan Douglas. If you don't know that name, he smeared her with all kinds of junk about communism, and she never did anything. Yeah, it's like this. Those were the days. Trust me, I can't sing and I'm not about to. But, you know, those were the days, my friend. We thought they would never end. That's it. That's what these people are hoping for. Can we get back to 1954 and then everybody's a commie? And then they're coming to get us. The Russians are coming. Well, guess what? The Russians are coming. Because if Donald's president, well, it's his last term, of course, not as far as he's concerned. But if he were president, then he would get to just open the White House back up. I say back because he had Lavrov and the whole bunch of them over there high-fiving in the Oval Office in the first place when he got elected. I don't know why they didn't arrest him at that point. Okay, so, it's all bizarre, but these people are going to be headed back into the woodwork as soon as we get rid of Donald. And we're getting rid of Donald, and Donald knows it. It's why he's panicked. I mean, the man is panicked. And I suppose, he's down to his last $2 billion, which, of course, he can't touch until the 20th of September. And the problem with that, and you wait, I think the day is coming very shortly when you're going to see a $3, $4, $5 drop in that crazy stock, DJT, his initials on the thing. I'd be embarrassed to even do it if I were in his position. Put his name on that. Well, of course, he does that with everything. I'm surprised he isn't walking around with tennis shoes with his initials on that, which he probably is. No, I'm saying the stock is going to get killed. It's already, solidly into the 19s. And, so that brings them a little less than 2 billion, but let's call it 2 billion. He had 10. Now 2. This man's in trouble. At the end, he's going to be praying that he can get his hands on the last 100 million. Maybe. That's possible, because you know what I say. And I've been around this business a long time. I can tell you that people will buy things for $1. They really will. $1? Sure. That they'll pay $1 for something just to see if it'll go to $1.50. Yeah, they will. It could be out of business, which, in fact, Donald's company is out of business. It was never in business. Doesn't do anything except for publish sex fantasies about the vice president. What's wrong with this man? Like I say, I don't even know what it is. I don't want to know. We shouldn't want to know. I want to know why he cares. Why would he put this out there? What's he, nuts? Yeah, he's nuts. He's nuts. In the middle of all this, while J.D. Vance is walking around, talking about how Kamala should go to hell. Imagine that. Telling Kamala on television, go to hell. How do you do that? How do you do that and think that you're going to have any ability to maintain your credibility as a national candidate for anything? Well, the answer is you can't. Okay, so let's go back to where I was a little bit ago before I went nuts again on this crazy person. And let's talk about what Kamala's doing, which is pushing American exceptionalism. And, in many ways, America is an exceptional country. Freedom of speech. That's exceptional. I mean, that other countries, you can't talk about each other like this. And in a way, we don't want to, but if one side does it, the other side does it. Hey, it's legal, or at least some of it, because there's some defamatory things out here. You know, the election people, $1 billion from Fox, or almost a bit, not quite, 900 million, whatever it is. But 1 billion. And then there's a little lawsuit. It's the same thing, another election company. They're going to get the same deal unless they want to go all the way to court and end up having to pay $2.5 billion more, Fox. But so far, if they get the same deal that they had the first time, they'll be up to 1.8 billion, something like that. Who would do this? Why go through this? How could it be worth it? Well, I know what they think would be worth it. Donald Trump gets elected president. Every other television network is shut down. All the journalists are put in jail. And Fox gets to be the United States television station like Pravda. Come on. It's got to be what they're thinking or what they were hoping for, because so far they've paid $1 billion for it. Now they'll have to pay another $1 billion unless they want to pay $2.5 billion, and they may figure, what the heck, $2.5 billion more, that's $3.5 billion. And if Donald becomes president, we won't have to pay anything because Donald will jail them all. You think that's not true? You know what he's talking about today? Military tribunals for all of our ex-presidents. He's nuts. So would he do something to journalists? Sure. Why not? He'd do it to anybody. It's just like I love to tell my friends who support Donald. I mean, I'm really pretty nice to them, to tell you the truth. But I do tell them this. Donald would spit in your eye if he were standing in front of you. You know, if you said, Donald, I've supported you throughout this whole thing. 1 minute later, the spit would hit your eye. Doesn't care about you. Not one bit. Cares about Vladimir Putin. Someday we may find out why. He does care about Putin. He doesn't care about you. You send him your last dollar while you're eating dog food. Trust me, he still won't care about you. Why would he? Never cared about anybody. Doesn't care about his wife, doesn't care about his kids, doesn't care about anybody. Nobody. Certainly doesn't care about the piano tuner. You know, that's my favorite story. Piano tuner goes into Trump Tower because he's got pianos all over the tower. They need to tune the pianos. Goes through the tower, tunes all the pianos, comes back to Donald, gives him a bill. Donald rips up the bill and tells him to get the hell out. Really? That's what you're dealing with. Doesn't pay his bills. Well, why should he? No one cares. They don't get it from him. Of course, E. Jean Carroll's getting her money. Yes, she is. It's all guaranteed. It had to be in order for him to get the opportunity to do an appeal. I know he thinks if he becomes president, he can shut down the courts and then he doesn't have to pay anybody. I get it. But he's not going to win. He's not even close. This thing's getting out of control against him. Okay, so back to Kamala and American exceptionalism. Yes, this country is exceptional. We put up with people like Donald Trump. We don't jail him. We do put him on trial for being a criminal, and he was convicted in a real trial. And then he's got more trials coming for real crimes. So, yeah, that's also American exceptionalism because we don't have kings. You can't break the law if you're the president. Now, the Supreme Court said you sort of can. But they're going to have to get Donald elected again in order for that to hold up. Because I can promise you, Kamala and the rest of the Democratic Party, led by Sheldon Whitehouse, a great senator, they are getting ready to add 4 Supreme Court justices up to 13. And at 13, you would then have 7 liberals and 6 conservatives. And all this goes away. That's not meant to change the country against conservatives. It's meant to change the country against neo-Nazis. That's the problem. So that's sort of where it balances out right now. And that's American exceptionalism because it shows the potential that we have to prevent the worst kinds of criminals from taking over our country and wiping out the democracy that we've had in place for 240 years. I know people say it's not a democracy. Well, there's a book. I always have a book because I read. Donald does not, but he doesn't need to because Putin tells him what to do. But if you want a book, this is called On Democracy, and it's by Robert Dahl. Very famous book. And it'll explain to you about our democracy. We've also got a republic. That's fine. But it's a republic that operates within a democracy. So, yeah, that's the truth. And you can also go to de Tocqueville from 1830, and you'll get the same story. We're a democracy. In fact, the name of the book that de Tocqueville wrote, which is very famous and correct, 1830s, Democracy in America. I mean, the book is thicker than The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, so it'll take you a while to read it. But, spend a lifetime in academics and you can read it. But American exceptionalism, I agree with it, up to a point, of course, because I know the Democratic Party has become a bunch of flag wavers. And so far, those flags are being waved for things that are fairly benign, nothing dangerous. The problem is this. If you start waving flags every time you wake up in the morning, eventually, and we've seen it here, eventually you end up with Adolf Hitler, Donald Trump, same thing. And when you get that, then you got people holding up swastika flags and putting somebody into camps somewhere, which Donald has already promised that he's going to send people out of here. Mass deportation. That's his word. All of his buddies that he wants to put into power in Washington. It's not happening, but they are there, and they're saying these words. This is fascism. This is killing Jews, but now they got other names. This is not good. It's very dangerous. There's some great authors that have written wonderfully important books on this subject. One of the best, you can go find this anytime, by Timothy Snyder, Snyder, On Tyranny. Great book. Got to read it. But at any rate, in the United States, you don't have to read it because we are exceptional and we don't force you to do anything. Donald would like to ban books. We sell books. We give away books. We create libraries. Donald wants to close libraries. Missouri wants to close libraries. They got a bill in there. So far, it's been blocked. They want to close libraries. They're trying right now to close the libraries in St. Charles. But listen to me. They can't close the best restaurant, well, in a large area that I know of, and that is Wendy's at 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road, where they have wings, they have smoked meat, they have hamburgers, cheeseburgers, patty melts with lots of onions on them. They've got pizza. They've got baby back ribs. They've got onion rings that are delicious. It's a great restaurant. The food is phenomenal. You know, this was put together by Ben and his wife, and let's say his wife and Ben. But the bottom line is, it is a great restaurant, and it's in Chesterfield, 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road. And now they've got a new Wendy's, depending on how new you think is new, but it's new, relatively new, and it's in Defiance, Missouri, just down the road on Highway 94, 2999 South Highway 94. Same great food, same great environment, same great people owning it. It's Wendy's, and it's fabulous. Now, if you want jewelry, well, 4506 Hampton, you'll find all the jewelry in the world. It's all there. My friend Al and his son AJ run this place. They're there every day. They run a great operation. They've got cases filled with jewelry, and they buy jewelry, they sell it. They buy coins and they sell them. All at great prices because these are very fair people. And they just do a great job, and they design jewelry. Whatever you're looking for, you can have designed at Jewels on Hampton. And finally, after saying all of that, they'll fix your watch. They'll do that too. I got a clock at school that needs to be fixed, to tell you the truth, but I don't think you need to have anybody as qualified as Jewels on Hampton to do it. But anyway, Jewels on Hampton, they're great. 4506 Hampton. And then there are the suits. The ones you can buy. They are in Clayton. They're on the corner of Forsyth and Central, and it's the St. Louis Suit Company. And they have been there for 30 years. They've got suits and shoes and shirts and ties. Come on. The best ties. Yeah, you can't go wrong. The best ties. I mean, these are quality ties. And what do they cost? $5. You heard me. $5. You want to buy somebody a present? It's going to cost you $5. Just go in and buy ties. They're beautiful ties. Even if the people don't wear the ties, they'll appreciate you bought the ties. They really will. They're quality. Tell them you paid $50. They won't know unless they go to the St. Louis Suit Company. Then they'll find out. Now, also, if you're having a wedding, these are the people you need for a wedding. They will get you fitted into wedding attire. They'll take care of everything for you. They know weddings. Very respected in the area of weddings. And finally, it's going to be cold. Now, listen, right now, it is my favorite weather. Really. I'm not lying. It's 100 degrees outside, maybe 101, maybe 102. It's hot. I love it. Really, it's great. You lay out in the sun and, well, that's not good. 2024, we don't do that. But Okay, it's hot. It's nice. Feels good. I mean, obviously, you got to go into air conditioning if you're going to be exposed to it for long. But if you're at a swimming pool or, for me, the beach, there's no beach here. I understand. I get it. I'm not Donald. But at any rate, clearly, great weather now. In a week, maybe 2, you might be looking at an overcoat. So keep it in mind. It's not going to be 100 every day. St. Louis Suit Company, they'll fit you into everything, including an overcoat for the wintertime. And they are in Clayton, as they have been for 30 years. So I do want to go back and talk a little more about, patriotism, American exceptionalism. We got a lot of fighting going back and forth here, verbal fighting over Donald's bone spurs and his accusations that the country's heroes are just a bunch of suckers and losers. Well, here's the thing. I don't even think they're suckers and losers. If you go into the military, I do tell people to stay out. From my standpoint, I'm against it. I just don't do it. I mean, I can't fight anybody. I've never touched a gun. I don't want to go near a gun. I just don't. I understand there are times when your country has got to defend freedom. I get it. But I'm not thinking about a civil war. I'm not thinking of going out and fighting people who are working for Donald, who talk about rebellion. Sure, they're talking about those things because they know they're going to lose. Of course, they think they can't lose because they think that they can just disrupt everything and end up in the House of Representatives. And then Donald's done a Rutherford B. Hayes and he's president. That's in Donald's dreams. But, there is patriotism. I believe in that. I believe that America's a great place to live. I really do appreciate being here, and I do appreciate the service of people who volunteer and put their lives on the line for our freedom. I do. I appreciate it. Only thing I don't like is when they're fighting against people who are not threatening anybody's freedom. Vietnam. The story was when Vietnam goes communist, all of Southeast Asia will go. Well, we know that wasn't true. 58,000 people died for that lie. I understand. They died trying to defend the United States. They meant well. They didn't have any part of the lie. The lie was Lyndon Johnson and his people. He had an undersecretary of state who's no longer with us, a guy named Bernard Brody. When I was at UCLA, Bernard Brody read my freshman paper on the war in Vietnam and sent it back to me with this on it. It said, D as in donut, this is communist propaganda. Okay. But as it turns out, it was the truth. Earth One. But at any rate, those people did push that lunacy. And there are people out here today who are saying those things. I mean, they want to fight because they think the Kamala Harris is a communist. Please. I know. Her father. Right. I get it. Her father was a Marxist professor, they say. Come on. Where do they get these stories? They got more stories. They come up with more craziness because they are weirdos and freaks. That's what Joe Scarborough says, and I think that's correct. And listen, Joe Scarborough is extremely conservative. I know because he's against Donald, everybody thinks he's become liberal. He's not. I mean, his wife, yeah, Mika, sure. Not Joe. Scarborough is not that way. Scarborough is a conservative. You know, he believes in not spending money. You know, the country. I believe we should spend lots of money, and we could spend more money. And if we would have issued 100-year bonds 2 years ago when we had a chance, we'd be wide open for what we could do. But Donald Trump was the president, 4 years ago. Donald Trump was the president, and he even knew about this, and he still didn't do it. Yeah, it was written about in Barron's, you know, not Pravda, Barron's. There are other countries in the world that have sold 100-year bonds very smartly. We didn't do it. We could have. We didn't. So here we are, and I love America. I really do. And when people come back from fighting, I honor their service. I really do. Now, I wouldn't have said that when I was a teenager. Of course not. Because at that time, you know, we had FBI agents in our classrooms, and it was, you know, the war in Vietnam, and J. Edgar Hoover was after us. Well, we're past that, and, you know, we're all grown up. In fact, we're more than grown up. We're old. I got one for you. Go take a look at a picture of Brad Pitt. I guess this is circulating around right now. And there's truth to what the story is. You look at Brad Pitt, and then look at a picture of Tim Walz. Because let me tell you something, and I really hadn't thought of, why would you think of this? But anyway, when it was told to me, I thought, no, that's not true. But here's the truth. Brad Pitt and Tim Walz are the same age. Brad Pitt's actually slightly older. They're both 60. I didn't think so, but yeah, that's true. They certainly don't look the same age. That's a fact. But okay, so what? I mean, what are we talking about here? Everybody doesn't look the same. You know, I don't have any hair. And I'm certainly not 6 feet tall. But, you know, everybody's different. But at any rate, yeah, you look at Tim Walz and you put him up against Brad Pitt, that's a pretty amazing story. I think you'll find it interesting. Just take a look. But, okay, I'm just saying here that you know, if Kamala wants to wave some flags, and if America wants to wave flags, I'm okay up to a point. You know, Franklin Roosevelt was something that we could be very patriotic about. Defended the United States at Pearl Harbor. Defended the United States against the Depression, brought on under Herbert Hoover. Saved the world from Adolf Hitler. Sure. That's something to honor. And certainly the people who fought in that war fought something that was essential for all of our freedoms. But listen, if you don't know the history, those very same people that we've got running around here that are crazy, we're talking about America First in 1940, led by Charles Lindbergh. And they said, don't fight anybody. Forget about Europe. That's their problem. No alliances. Don't worry about Britain. They're not, forget it. That's their tough luck. Don't do anything. Stay away. Jews, they're going to have to go somewhere else. They ended up in Cuba, and that ship got turned back around. It was the St. Louis, if you know the story. Because the America First people absolutely were for America first. That's the patriotism that scares me every day. When people are patriotic, I'm sure worried about all that coming back. And of course, they're out here right now. Donald will, tell you all about patriotism. Buy his digital cards, buy his Bible, buy anything he can sell. He'll sell you anything he's got. He'll sell you a piece of his jacket. You can buy a piece of his jacket. Why would you want a piece of his jacket? Take your own jacket wherever you want and get out of here. Go to the cleaners and leave us alone. No, I don't want to buy a piece of his jacket. But he's selling it. And believe me, if he only had a chance, he'd sell us. Now, that's a fact. He'd sell us. Really, he would. There are people who have written all kinds of books on it. People who knew him, worked with him, made the mistake of getting involved with him. I think that's a good way to end tonight. I mean, we got a minute and a half left, but honestly, he would like to sell you a piece of his jacket. You want to buy a piece of his jacket? He'll sell it to you. Probably sell you the soles from his shoes. Oh, I'm sorry. We got 3 minutes left. He'll sell you anything he's got. He doesn't care. He's a very sick man. And we all know it. And if you didn't hear the first part of this show where I talked about him describing this sex act with Kamala Harris as a so-called joke, believe me, this is not good. This will be everywhere tonight. It's out there today. Go look it up on Google. You can find out what it is. I don't want to know. I could have checked all day long. I refuse to look. The Dow Jones today made a new all-time high. 3 weeks ago, Donald said, the Kamala crash. Today, the Dow Jones hit an all-time high after the hero of the unified Reich, the genius of Wall Street, who Wharton's professors said was the dumbest person who ever went to Wharton, the Kamala crash. And 3 weeks later, new all-time highs. Now, I've said, be careful, because these new all-time highs continue to be led by the narrowest number of stocks possible, and that is so dangerous. And there's no question. I am concerned because the later any kind of a decline would occur, the less time there would be for Kamala to adjust to it, because Donald would be out here screaming from the rooftops that he knew better and could have stopped it. When it happens, no one can stop it. Trust me. Joe Kennedy knew. He became a multi-millionaire selling short in 1929. They couldn't fix it, but they could certainly make money from it. Listen, now I do have to get out of here, but be careful with stocks, but definitely go to Wendy's. Definitely go to Jules on Hampton. Definitely go get a coat, an overcoat, at the St. Louis Suit Company. And remember, this is Showdown. I'm Mark Kaysen. Good night.